What's up, everybody? We are a week before SHOT Show in Asheville, North Carolina with Tony Marfione.
Hey, how are you? Thank you guys for coming.
Microtech Knives.
Yes.
Absolute legend in the knife world, and he is giving us a sneak peek on all the new stuff. This is going out the first day of SHOT Show, but this is a lot of cool stuff. Starting with the new Hera Mini. Tell me about it.
You know, yes, we have the new Hera Mini, which is going to be dropped at the SHOT Show. They're actually going to be shipping to some of our dealers that same exact week or just a little bit before. So definitely expect them. Hit up Blade HQ for sure. So yes, we wanted to come up with a little something that was going to replace the UTX 70 and also replace the UTX 85, even though those contenders have been in our lineup for as long as I could remember. But something a little bit in between. You know, we chose the Hera chassis style because I feel it's the most elegant in the hand, even for this particular size. And it still has all the same attributes as all the bigger knives, which includes the dual fuel drivetrain, the CrudCutters on the back, titanium pocket clip with silicon nitride ball, glass breaker, M390 MK steel. So it'll have, amongst some of the other knives, which will probably have some different blade configurations, we'll have a variety of select blade configurations for this new pattern. We're super excited about this. It's super pocketable. All the new systems, you know, fire effortlessly and fire good and strong. So, you know, we didn't go with the, you know, hidden screw design on this particular model, and we'll probably maintain, you know, the fasteners on this one here, but we're super excited about this. You know, that one's in a bayonet, and of course we'll have a DE and some other really cool pieces as well, so.
Yeah, so I know that in very recent months, you've been releasing a lot of the new stuff with, I guess you were calling the dual...
It's the dual fuel drivetrain.
Dual fuel, there we go.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
You know, as we took a proactive approach on our line, I mean, we've started doing OTFs, I think, very, very early on, single action, back in the early, you know, 90s. And then, of course, you know, we were prompted to go ahead and make something in a dual action configuration. You know, I think the first one I had as a kid was one of the red-handled NATO OTFs that I had, and I fell in love with it. But, you know, when we first made the first ones, a few of our dealers looked at it and they're like, hey, this is cool and novel, but it's not going to fly. It's not going to fly, and we're like, well, we kind of beg to differ. We're going to stick along with it, but here it is 23 years later, and we've done our fair share of dominating that market. Yeah. You know, so but what we had to take a look at is just as more companies have been, you know, on our tail making OTFs now, and, you know, it kind of quantifies what we do, we started seeing things that were a little bit better, maybe a little bit worse than what we were doing. So we had to take a very humble, proactive approach to say, look at guys, you know, talk to our team to say we're going to have to be competitive on these models. We're going to have to change some things up. It's like any other brand out there. You look at, you know, like I'll use a great example. We're no in comparison to a car company, but look at what Chevrolet did with the Corvette series. I mean, there is so much value incorporated into a C6 or a C8 or any of those lines. I would never buy a Corvette any other way, but I own one. But you compare that value and performance and everything they did at the price point they were at, it's very difficult to compete. So we had to take a proactive approach. It wasn't just coming up with a new SKU or a different model or a different blade or maybe a different theme. You know, that's stuck, but we had to take a look at the knife from top to bottom to say, look at, you know, what attributes could we stick with? What are the complaints that we're getting? How are we going to compete without going too far outside of the box of our brand? So it started from the inside out on these knives. You know, it started from the inside out. So we had to reconfigure. There is no commonality between these new knives and our old models, unfortunately. Like you get into...
They have a lot of the similar designs. Like it's a Microtech through and through.
Right, 100%. It's recognizable, and we don't depart from our brand for sure. It emulates our signature. But like, I'll give you an example, like the new Scarab, it's a Scarab II. Okay, it's a Scarab II 100%, but it's the Gen 3. The only thing that interchanges with the earlier version is the clip and the glass brake. All the other componentries had to be revamped to do it. So, you know, that leaves a lot of people to thought, well, what about the old knives? How are we going to warranty what's out there? Trust me when I tell you, you know, I have enough ambient components to service everything in our brands over the last at least good 20 years on OTFs. You know, and the thing about it is, if the stuff wears out, we could replace it or fix it, but we have enough parts of the, you know, the latest gens that we've done to continue to service. So we're in great shape in that respect. But these knives were taken into consideration to be long-lasting, very, very easy to manipulate without effort. You know, not too easy to the point where, you know, it's going to make it unsafe, but The drivetrains are just robust inside and out. And then, of course, commonality in machining. Our new techniques that we're utilizing go unmanned, so we're able to offer some great technologies at an affordable, what we consider to be an affordable competitive price. So we're very, very pleased with these lineups.
I think that commonality of internals, Tony's a master of knife making. It is Hebrew to me what's going on inside this. But he was telling me something like how all these bigger knives have a similar system inside.
They do. The drivetrain that we chose to go with and how we manipulate the front and rear firing mechanisms are identical. So outside of the Mini Hera, which its drivetrain is very similar, but its leg mount system will be confined to those size models. But all between combat, Cypher, Scarab, any of the models like the Hera II, the drivetrain system is uniquely similar with a lot of common parts. So it's, for us, it really, before I had front and rear leg mounts that were different on all these models, and now it's common. So that on us just helps us schedule our planning, our manufacturing, everything else, because we make all this stuff in-house. Contrary to popular belief, you come to our facilities, this is what we do.
Yeah, I saw with my own eyes all the different tooling.
100%. So, it's easier to manage one single component that's used off a series of. So my transmissions, as I call it, are all the same in these knives. Which makes it nice.
It does, and I imagine that's one of the ways that you've managed to keep the prices not skyrocketing. These are the same as the old, but they come with a serious level up in technology.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of that has to do with, when we started taking a look at our, knife market in general, and we started to see some things just turn a little bit differently on the markets. I think people are still buying, I think customers are still interested, but that I think the old adage where people are coming up and going, well, shoot, I'll just take them all. I think those days are over. I think people are being more selective in their purchasing power right now, so we just have to have that ability to make no excuse beyond a shadow of a doubt that if they're looking at an OTF, that the Microtech's going to be their first choice. Make no excuse not to be able to buy it. They can't come back and say the price is too high or the quality or anything along those lines. That's another thing on these new knives is everything that we're doing on here is, aside from a few surface markings, is deep cut engraved. So our ability to incorporate all these newer features that used to be custom features into our production is what's giving us, no punt, that edge. So, and then of course, add in the fact that we've reinvested in our infrastructure of lights out manufacturing, which is, we're passing those savings along to our consumers. We could have kept our prices the same, or we could have maybe raised the prices on these pieces because it would warrant doing it. But I think right now it's not a matter of a race to the bottom, but it's adding value to the brand. Adding value to the brand is, I think, the key thing right now.
And I think you're doing a great job. Another thing I've noticed is on a lot of the older Microtechs, they had proprietary hardware, but that looks just like standard Torx here on the new Combat Troodon.
100%, because that was something that our customers demanded. I get it. The creativity that we've done in fasteners, and it wasn't a matter to keep people out of the knives. It was a matter of just being different or being innovative to the show. A lot of people don't understand when we started first making knives. What drove us to that point of getting Swiss machines or starting to make our own screws was the inability for us to source these stuff accurately. So, let's pan back to it is an anniversary year, back to 1994 when I'm building UDTs. No, I started in my apartment. I didn't have a CNC in my apartment. Guys made handles for me. I had blades manufactured, I had parts and pieces, and we put them together and we sharpened them and packaged and cleaned them in our apartment. If I had to make knives, it was grinding blades out on the back porch. But the biggest problem that we ran into is sourcing these darn Torx screws. So I've used everything from spline screws to Allen heads to Torx whenever I can get them, to the point where here we're doing this full time and what's missing? I asked my wife, what's going on? We didn't get our screws today and they're not coming for another 6 weeks. It's like, what do we do? Well, go make our own. So, for the longest time, we haven't used store-bought screws in, decades. But our customers are like, we'd like to have the ability to have access to these knives. Some of the guys can make their own repairs. You got some great smiths out there. I'll call them knife smiths, gunsmiths, or whatever. Could service these things. It's like anything else. If you know what you're doing and you know how to understand how to manipulate these knives, they can be serviced by yourself. But the addition of the Torx is where we're staying. We make everything in-house. I'm not saying we're not going to have some pieces that have the early tri-wing screw or any of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think for accessibility to the customer, this is what they've asked for. We're giving it to them.
Yeah, and I think that combined with that new mechanism inside that's simpler and easier to work with.
100%.
And then how easy and effortless the action is, thanks to so much going on right here, including those CrudCutters you mentioned earlier.
Absolutely. It's something that we incorporated. We've been putting, we've been putting CrudCutters a lot in proportions of our mechanisms for the longest time. But on the new OTFs, we have CrudCutters that just simply do two functions. It displaces the garbage that gets caught up underneath your buttons or pocket lint or any of that sort of pocket cheese or even debris. So it reduces surface area, which makes it a little bit smoother. It only rides on the outside tracks, and of course we displace anything that could be potentially stuck up underneath the button. So far it's worked out very well, and it's incorporated into all our new models. So when you see that, you'll see that particular feature for sure. The only one I'm not seeing up here is I'm not seeing the Hera II, so that's kind of a neat piece because it has the hidden screw design on it, which we really love. That's something we wanted to. Yeah, it's great. It's there's no magic behind it. It's a patent pending thing that we have done. It has hardened points up underneath the chassis, and what it is to take this knife apart. It's great. You could put the knife in the neutral position, remove this with a T30, and then slide that scale back just like 30 thousandths, and the whole scale lifts off. So it makes it extremely robust. Here we go.
Oh, they got you the Hera II.
Yeah, there's the full-size Hera II. The guys just brought me one. So the Cypher and the Hera are the only two knives right now in our lineup that have that. It's super robust, super easy to maintain, and it gives it a clean look. So a lot of these knives, like this particular one, Blade HQ could come in and say, hey Tony, I want carbon fiber set up on each side of this knife. It'll give it a super clean look.
Ooh, if it was going to be carbon fiber, I'd have to DLC code everything else too.
100 billion%. Yeah, so
I'd be all over that.
It leaves us. Right now these are what we consider to be our standard models, but we have some new blade configurations coming along. Mm-hmm. Of course, a double-edged dagger is one of my favorite. But even with the Cypher, we have a couple different blade configurations, but just very, very elegant and again, just effortless to be able to fire these knives, where before it'd be like you'd have to stand on some of them. I get that, some of us can do it, some people couldn't. So I think, the way that we've gone about the line up to this point, I think there's a little something for everybody that's looking for just the very best technology. If you're looking for an OTF, I beg to challenge that there's going to be something better,
Yeah.
And until then, we're going to continue to work as hard as we can on these brands.
Yeah, but this new lineup, just to me, looks like a company that loves its customers, listens, and gives them what they are asking for.
100%. We get a lot of requests, especially from our great dealer base. Sometimes we get some inquiries in some ideas, but when you start getting hundreds of them all in the same over a course of time, you need to start listening. Our customers are the makeup of our success over the years. So some things it's like Kentucky windage, but like the screws and like the clips with the silicon nitride ball, we're listening. Some things I do is not always the best home run, but it makes sense. But we do listen to our base, and we do listen to the masses to try to come up with a better, just a better mechanism or just a better product in general. So. We get it, we get it. But you take the LUDT for an example. The LUDT has been made, that's the very first pattern that we did back in the very, very early 90s.
Now, you showed me that first UDT model.
Yeah, I know.
It's an old knife.
It is an old knife. And it is, guys. So, definitely stay tuned for the, it's our 30th year anniversary this year. So we're going to be doing a couple really neat things for you all to share and enjoy. And it's going to be the same with some additional commentaries like these that will explain a little bit about the history of the company. So stay tuned for that. But the new LUDTs run on bearings, same CrudCutter pins, titanium backstrap. Looks and smells like an LUDT, but these new patterns are unreal. And we're extremely excited, and it should be available. Hopefully you guys get the first Tanos here shortly. So we're super excited for that.
So I've seen a lot of this 3M traction tape used in Microtechs, and I think there's even an OTF. Yeah, the Scarab. The Scarab also has it in there. Tell me about that.
You know, the very, very early on, of course, on the UDT series, we had a swatch made that was made out of a Kraton or Verton rubber that we made, and that'll be the same on the ones that we are taking a look at this year. So, you know, we've used the grip tape on the very, very early gen Scarabs and some of the early LUDTs, but it was the granular. It was their, you know, it was almost like a sanding belt. It was so rough, and those granulars were tough on tooling. They were great as far as grip, but they'd tear up your hands, they'd tear up your pants. And the guys always would complain. So 3M had an alternate material, a wing walk material that gave the same function and grip and everything else, but it didn't have those loose, particulate that would get in everything. It was horrible.
I imagine it could even get in your knife's action if you're not careful.
If it was, I don't know what they put on that particular wing walk tape, but it was some kind of silicon something. It was some kind of ceramic or whatever, and it would just get into everything. But we're pretty happy. You know, there's a lot of knockoff materials out there, but we specifically use 3M wing walk tape on our inlays for these types of builds. So SOCOM Elite, LUDT, Scarab, and any of the models that'll have that, we'll continue to work with and it's serviceable. If you tear it or do something, you know, although it's stuck in there really good, we can get it out and replace it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, my favorite knife on the table, my favorite new one, is that Scarab. It feels so good.
Dude, again, we had to get the mechanism. Like I said, everybody's really enjoyed the Scarab, and again, it looks and smells like a Scarab II, but it is actually, in fact, the Gen III. Like I was saying before, the only thing that'll interchange with the old one is the glass break and the clip, so nothing else will. You know, but we're pretty happy on this particular. You're going to see some different blade configurations and finishes coming up very shortly on this. The SE-DE, maybe a DE, and a Tano, I think, is what the lineup is for the year.
Mm-hmm. But like the slide is really quite wide, so it gives your thumb a lot of real estate to push on.
100%.
I did it really slow, but I'll tell you, it's not difficult. This is an effortless OTF like all of them.
There's nobody on our side of the fence, including administrative people that typically don't fire a lot of these knives that could do it with either hand.
Yeah, but like, it's so easy to fire, but I think
it's got recoil. This knife's got recoil.
So look at the fat of my arm here while I fire this. Like, it shakes your entire arm.
Yeah.
It is just so powerful, but so easy to operate.
You know, and some of it was getting back to some of our very, you know, when we were working, you know, in the early stages of Microtech, I was just coming out of the firearms industry, and you know, a lot of what I learned about different spring rate materials and different high-end materials really helped us in the early makings of the automatic knives. You know, we use specifically a material now in all our drive mechanisms. The fuel is rocket wire, and that is a trademark name. It's either there's two companies that make it. You either have missile wire or you have rocket wire. We're back to using rocket wire in all our mechanisms. That's from like 1994 all the way up to about 2000. We lost conduit on getting some of that material. It's a little bit tricky to source and it's difficult to wrap, but the rates and everything else give us a little bit of a jump on everything that we're doing. You know, and that means, you know, better technology, less repairs. You know, we don't disclose how many cycles these knives go for, but I could assure you that it's more than you'll ever fire in your lifetime. You know, a lot of people think we just do this stuff and don't test it. I mean, we do a lot of laboratory testing in-house to ensure that, you know, our guys push us. They push me to the limits, and we have to do that. And I show a lot of frustration because they'll come in and say, "Hey, the knife has exceeded 100,000 pops." It's like, who even does that? I know that there's guys that do.
Yeah.
Maybe, who knows? But you know, we want to make sure that we're trying to build a product as durable as we can. As with anything, it's going to wear out. The more you sharpen it, the edge is going to go away. The blade is going to melt. But you know, what we don't want to have is a catastrophic failure in the field. So we try to test as much as we can, you know. And it's ongoing, it never stops. Our engineering team is probably some of the best guys. We build our own testing equipment and we test a ton in the field. So a lot of the derivatives of what you're seeing here is, hey man, you know, we'd like to see a little something different, a little something more robust. Some of these attributes in these knives were based on the feedback we've received from end users in the field.
Okay. So we talked a lot about the autos and the OTFs. However, you came out swinging with a folder last year. In fact, you won Knife of the Year.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. You know, we've always admired with what a lot of the companies have done over the years in folders. I mean, I remember when the good old-fashioned liner lock was the thing, and frame locks, and I've seen it all. I've seen so many different mechanisms, but we wanted to do something in our own right. I get it that there's so many knives now that have I could say it that Benchmade created the standard. The standard for a folder with that axis lock that those guys had. It was the staple in everybody's inventory and everybody's pockets for a good bit.
My goodness, do people still love that?
Yeah, and they do. So, and then when I believe that their patents expired or however they did, and now I'm seeing everybody do the same exact thing. So our thing is that we didn't want to just copy an axis or what else anybody else was doing. We wanted to come up with something a bit different. And we believe that we came up with our adaptation of the ram lock, which I'll tell you has been a huge hit for us, and we like it to death. It's difficult to machine these buttons. I will tell you that right now. It's not the easiest thing to make, but I think as far as reward is concerned, our team has done an unbelievable job articulating these new designs. So like you said, the MSI has been a great hit, and it continues to just take its place amongst the ranks here. Wonderful materials, M390MK, ceramic bearings, hardened components. All these knives have a titanium backstrap, and then of course we have a heat-treated stainless clip that'll go on either side. Even though that the Amphibian has a machined titanium clip, I believe that all this stuff will kind of interchange either way. We wanted something just a little bit more robust for the Amphibian model.
Yeah, so the Amphibian has come out since SHOT Show last year, and I remember I saw one come in, and I called my wife and I said, pretty, please, and she said yes, and I'm like, yes! But like the Amphibian, I was learning just the other day, this is an old design for you.
That's right. I can't remember off the top of my head when the first Amphibians were made, but we had a couple neat mechanisms back in the day that we did on the Amphibian. Nobody got it. We had a button lock that had a rotary safety in it, and some guys could work it, some couldn't. Some of the guys that were, seasoned makers were like, man, we love this, but everybody else just fumbled with it. And then we ended up going to just a standard liner lock on the knife, and we made a handful in Vero Beach. But we've always appreciated that pattern, So something to expect on these folders is, like I said, we have a few tricks up our sleeve that we're going to have released in the couple next quarters. We're not going to mention it now because we don't have them quite ready, but we have 5 new editions of ram locks coming your way. Yeah, we're really excited. We're really excited because it's stuff that people have asked for, and the consensus is going to be, so some of it could be redos of earlier models, some could be new patterns, but there's going to be a relatively good lineup of these ram locks. And again, we continue to make SOCOM Elites the way that we have for the longest time. And something I will tell you that's coming is you're going to see a mini SOCOM come back this year. So everybody is just like so excited about that. So we're not sure if it's going to be a ram lock or it's going to be a traditional liner lock, but it's coming. Okay. So yeah.
So before we wrap up, I want to ask you a bit of a question here. So when you shot the acceptance speech for the MSI's winning of Best Folder and Best Knife of the Year last year, and when we showed up to visit you in Asheville just this weekend, I noticed that you spend a lot of time at the machine. Most of the time, the big knife makers who run a company as big and successful as Microtech, they're wearing a suit and a tie in an office now. But no, you are on the floor still designing and prototyping.
It's what I do. I guess it's just hard to get out of that matrix of things. I will tell you, I'm starting to tire at my age. I'm not super old, but I've been doing it for a minute. But that's what gets me to work. What gets me to get through all the administrative duties that still have to be done, and the attorneys and lawyers and just everything that the bankers, just everybody, employees, HR, that's not my drive. It's never been really my kung fu, and maybe to my disadvantage. I've made probably some business decisions that weren't always the best, but I do have a wonderful team. And I will say they do allow me the ability to still continue to create. I have some great guys amongst us working there, but what gets me excited for the day is coming in and working on new stuff or coming in and working on new developments. It's still in my blood. I still make knives by hand. I still do that, maybe not as often as I have, but that's what drives me to stay in this game. You know, I'll never forget the grassroots of where I came from. You know, and just like the machine that you've seen that was there, that was the first machine I ever bought outside of the grinder. So a machine, you know, that's if you look at the date code on the machine, it's actually 5 of 94. And it was made in Elmira, New York. So that particular piece of machinery is very close to me. Nobody touches it. And then, of course, the grinder that you've seen at the house, that was the first original Birking that I purchased from K&G Knife Supply, of all places. And it still runs, and you'll see it at Blade Show this year. So, but yeah, the inner workings of the company still fascinates me, especially now, because working on all these, having an opportunity to work with my team on all this new development, and then work with our tooling people, work with our manufacturers to come up with bigger and better ways and more efficient ways to produce our products to pass on those savings has been instrumental. I've learned so much probably in the last 18 months than I have in the entire history, because you get in a rut doing what you do. You know, I've learned how to machine things a certain way, learned how to do it a certain way. To be effective, we've had to change some things around. So it's been exciting to remain on the shop floor, and I'll continue to do that for as long as I can.
Well, I really like that. One of the things I admire the most about you and your company is it's always just been about the knives. It's not necessarily about the money, it's not about the prestige. It is, we're going to make the best product that we possibly can.
And that was the consensus that, and the approach we took the minute we started changing, you know, the output of what we were thinking we were going to do going forward. Was we were hoping that whatever we design, whatever we can contribute and take the information and put it forth, we wanted to make sure that every single movement we do into a new design is what we consider to be an award-winning piece. So my Blade Show award is not at the Blade Show. My Blade Show award is at every single day that I can come in and give it 1,000%. Still today, that's how I've trained my people, is to say, look, we're either going to do this and it's going to be the absolute best that we could put out, or the best that we could bring in the market, or we're simply not going to do it anymore. That is the consensus of Microtech going forward, and I hope our customer base could appreciate our mission.
Well, here at Blade HQ, we certainly do, and we are very excited for all this new stuff. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very
Tony.
much, and just to let everybody know, you know, we've been with Blade HQ, I can't remember how many years, but Blade HQ is our #1 Microtech outlet. So rest assured in saying that we have a lot of really great things cooking, so definitely stay tuned and check out their website and check out their YouTubes. It's amazing. You know, as far as a knife geek is concerned, it's my go-to. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. Stay tuned, subscribe to Blade HQ to see all the new SHOT Show content from all the different companies, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.